Welcome, everyone. All you brave people in the back. Welcome to our May version of the AFO BMG meeting, the last one of another fiscal year. I can't believe we're reaching the end of another academic and fiscal year together. It's been an exciting and quick year as usual, and I have a couple of updates today, and we'll get on with our order of business. It's always a pleasure to be able to talk to you about audits and FISHA. So I will kick off our meeting with that today. So what I really want to bring to your attention, and we are again beginning, well, full swing into the FY18 audit cycle. So for FY18, you may be getting knocks on the door. There are a couple of things that are going on this year that may be a little bit different, although they did more of this last year. But we are continuing to have the auditors, the external auditors who come in to do our compliance audit and our financial audit and our grants audit kind of as a combined activity. Doing not only the financial audit, but also doing testing to make sure that the audit materials that you give to them are accurate and you can prove how you produced them and how they are not altered in any way by you. So some of that may cause you to have a visit from an auditor. The turnaround times are very short, as usual. The schedule is aggressive. I can't believe that the audit cycle lasts almost a full year. We will probably sign off on the audit in the late February, early March timeframe in 2019 and begin the 2019 audit in April. And that's the way it happened this year. But even that said, it seems like a very long time. There is much to be done, so the auditors ask for very aggressive turnaround times, and I appreciate your compliance with that to the extent that you're able. Based on the FY17 audit, I wanted to share some things with you that I'm sure they'll be taking a look at because, of course, the objective of auditors is to ask for what have you done better this year than last year based on our audit findings, so I wanted to have just a brief conversation about that today. The first thing, inadequate procedures over expense deferrals and other cutoff-related issues. So we've done some things systematically on that. TEM was changed this year to record the proper dates so that happens much more automatically, but it is something as we end the fiscal year for you to pay very close attention to, whether something needs to be deferred or what the cutoff dates are, and you'll hear a lot more about that in the body of the meeting coming up. Self-approved timesheets, that's a sticky one, and we continue to try and figure out ways to highlight. We are working with the HR folks to understand and create reports so that they can be more aggressive on follow-up around that. Sometimes it just happens by accident, and it's another issue that is something that I just ask you to watch out for. When you have someone who is acting as a proxy, perhaps, and they accidentally approve their own time. Inadequate control over reporting restricted accounts. This one is not pervasive, so I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on that. Inadequate procedures over maintenance of accounts payable master vendor file. We get this all the time. University Payables has been doing a tremendous amount of work. Some of this relates to the number of duplicates that are there. We have to watch out for that. You know, the classic, I'm International Business Machines, or I'm IBM, or I'm I period, B period, M period. We do a lot of that assessment internally. The thing that I would ask for you to take a look at is be sure that you don't put a new vendor in there that already exists. So as you're interacting with vendors, do what you can to monitor whether or not they already exist in the vendor file, as well as TINs. This is a big deal for some people, and I know that it's difficult, especially, you know, we're dealing with human subjects and we're dealing with one-off kind of payments, and it seems like not a big deal to not get a TIN for somebody, but we get hit on that every time until, you know, it's just really important to have that information. So if University Payables kind of hammers you on that, they do it because the auditors catch us even if we have one. So a thing that we have done internally this year is to take a look at whether or not there are in fact exceptions For example, refunds are something that doesn't seem like you should have to have somebody's TIN for, because we are never going to be in that transaction, we are not going to be in a situation where there would be any tax liability for that person. But if that person ever does business with the university and they have a refund, then there's a file with no TIN, and we get hit on that one again. So to the extent you can, help us out with that. And not to say that there hasn't been tremendous improvement over the last couple of years. In fact, the auditors, even while they were giving us the finding last year, noted that it was in fact a much improved process. So we will continue to improve there. Inadequate controls over procurement card transactions and also over travel card transactions. This is, of course, the review of those transactions, keeping records, keeping receipts in your units, so that when an auditor does come, you can prove the receipt, can provide the receipts for them, those kind of activities. Again, we have a huge volume of that, but there's a lot of exposure, especially with the legislature on this one. We did not have a legislative audit commission hearing this year yet. Haven't heard from them on that, so I can't share that with you, but I'm sure it's coming. Contract and real property lease management. Usually this relates to a handful, and again, this is only a handful, but when it's a compliance audit, even one can be an audit finding. But there have been a handful of transactions where contracts are not properly signed, where lease agreements are not properly signed, where all the terms and conditions are not found that are contractual, that are required by state legislation. Those kind of issues catch a dozen or 2 dozen transactions every year, which is enough for us to receive an audit finding. And I mentioned last year, the president told the Legislative Audit Commission that our goal is to have 0 audit findings. So we're working on it. On the grant side, inadequate procedures for closing out federal projects. I think this is something that we continue to watch, something that I know that the grants folks are trying to manage very aggressively, but it showed up again this year on the audit. A couple of small ones, again, failure to submit exit counseling notification to students, inadequate documentation of approvals for payroll disbursements. So those are a few things to keep in mind. The FISHA process closes out in the March timeframe for us every year, so it's finishing just about as the audit picks up. And I just wanted to mention, it should not come as a surprise that there are some repeat comments here around FISHA, untimely submission of P-card and T-card transactions, inadequate monitoring of financial accounts, and that's really budget statement reconciliation, sort of the last bastion of defense for us in terms of watching to make sure that someone is not committing fraud. It's really very, very important to monitor those financial transactions. Non-compliance with office procedure documentation. This is really around, do you have a desk book? And if you have a desk book, a procedures manual in your office, are you following it? And often the auditors go beyond just looking at the OBFS policy and procedure manual or university policy and asking you, do you have a specific procedure documented in your unit? Lack of adherence to inventory equipment management guidelines. We're going to hear more about the great new biennial inventory system that's coming that should help with this. And that's the end of that particular part of my announcements. So, questions on any audit-related issues? Smile when the auditors come to talk to you. Okay. Another one, this one from University Accounting and Financial Reporting on the SOC 1, and I'm just going to read it to you. When departmental units contract with external service providers to perform financial transaction processing services or support transaction processing systems, the University of Illinois is responsible for ensuring such activities have adequate controls in place. This assurance typically is obtained from an annual specialized internal control assessment referred to as a Service Organization Control 1, the SOC 1 form. I'm sure many of you know and love it. The Office of the Auditor General also reviews these reports during the annual financial audit. Some examples of these services include credit card processing, banking and investing, point of sale systems, medical claim processing, work order tracking, and generation of related banner transactions. UAFR needs your help in identifying these external service providers. If your unit contracts with vendors to perform the types of services as described above, please send information to uas@uillinois.edu, and this will be in the notes from the meeting, and give your department contact name, vendor name, and an explanation of the service. Then if UAFR determines a SOC 1 audit report is needed, your unit is required to contact the vendor and request a copy of the most recent SOC 1 report. So again, this will be in your information packet after the meeting. You can access it there. An update on Duo. I was here, several meetings ago to talk about the dual access application called Duo that the university has acquired and is deploying. At this point, I will say that Urbana is a little bit more aggressive about that than Chicago, but I wanted this group to continue to be aware that more and more of our applications are going to be under this dual authentication mechanism. So again, I got a lovely email that I will read to you to share with you information about what's happening currently. AITS and the Urbana campus are working on improving and extending the use of two-factor authentication with Duo. Currently, Duo is deployed in front of banner forms, Herfy, HR front end, Paris, and Nessie from off-campus. 74,000 users have enrolled, and 2,000 physical tokens have been registered by users. Despite some initial success, the vendor-delivered user interface is not intuitive, has 15 open accessibility issues, and is a source of high call volume for university service desks. During April, the Urbana campus invited all users to pre-enroll in Duo to see what the wider Duo 2FA experience looks like before the Urbana campus starts requiring Duo in October. This is, remember, Urbana only at this point. Chicago has not set any dates for requirements around this. At the Urbana campus, Duo 2FA will cover many services such as Office 365, Webmail, Illinois Compass, U of I Box, and other important offerings. So it's not clear yet, and I will keep you posted on those of you who use shared folders in Box, whether that's going to impact us or not at this point. Furthermore, AITS is implementing several improvements to redesign and develop in-house Duo authentication and management. The redesigned software will be intuitive and easy to use, pass accessibility, exhibit a more integrated look and feel, and support single sign-on to limit authentication to once per day for all applications. So I think this is a good thing, good information for those of us on campus. Once you come in the morning and authenticate to your computer, you should have to do that only once, and all those dual authentications will be passed through as you log into different applications. Finally, the Duo roadmap includes proactively campaigning to get everyone signed up for Duo, putting Duo in front of TEM, student direct deposit, and I will say that on the student direct deposit side, we are moving forward with that right now. The students have an option to opt in to sign up for Duo for direct deposit, because millions and millions of dollars flow through there every year. Student bank account information is there, and we felt that that was a particular vulnerability that we wanted to try and help students avoid exposure around. And other applications as needed and time permits. Opt-in for student direct deposit is scheduled to begin on May 31st. The full Duo roadmap appears below, so Urbana is going to require it in October. Stay tuned for more information about Chicago, but as you work with enterprise applications, more and more of them will be protected by dual authentication. Okay, that is that announcement. One final announcement that I just wanted to mention, and you'll hear more about this in the meeting from Amber Munns in a few minutes, but we are continuing to move forward with the Source to Pay project. We had focus groups in April to help provide input for requests for proposals that should be going out sometime this summer. And I wanted to bring to the attention of this group, there's been conversation about why source to pay now. We're beginning to hear conversation about ERP replacement, and does it make sense? Is the cart before the horse, and so on and so forth. I just wanted to share with you what I know on that today. This is all certainly very much emerging, but AITS has done an assessment and has presented to senior leadership the possibilities for ERP replacement. I believe in the short term that the recommendation is going to be do a more full-blown process assessment, similar to the one that was done for source to pay, and that is a 3 to 5 year sort of proposition. There are some things that we need to take care of in source to pay that are much more urgent than that. So we're hoping that with the source to pay initiative, we'll learn a lot of lessons about how to do it right and be able to do it even more right as we get to the broader ERP replacement. So that's really the thinking around the timing on those two very big initiatives. Any questions for me today? Oh, everything is running perfectly. That's good. All right, let's kick off our first agenda item, an overview of the new biennial inventory system. Jeff Weaver is going to come up, and I hear that Kevin Chan is going to lurk in the background in case there are any questions, but Jeff is going to tell you all about what's happening with biennial inventory.
Good afternoon. I'm Jeff Weaver, Director of Property Accounting, and in the back lurking is Kevin Chan from AITS, so if you give me any tough technical questions, I'm going to probably refer those to Kevin. But really wanted to get in front of you today was recommended by our advisory group from the UIC University, who suggested we get out in front of you guys prior to implementation next year. So today I want to give you a quick overview of the project, talk about the current versus the future process, talk a little bit about some major features and the application benefits, and really talk about the rollout timeline, both for training and for system access. So really just some quick notes about the project. We kicked off in May 2016 when we got resourced for development. Advisory groups were created at each university to walk through the business requirements as we were building a new system for this. We did have pilots go out and use the system from start to finish in April to do some system testing before we went live. We are live now in production. Right now it's being used at the UIUC campus for their certifications that are due in August. And at UIC, you guys will be using this next year. If you're due for biennial in 2019, you'll be using the new system next year. So just a few notes, keys to think about in 2018 to prepare for that. The system does include a web-based system as well as a mobile app. So the web-based system, there is absolutely no cost to units to use the web. But the web isn't going to be really where we have barcode and scanning technology. If you want to get out and use barcode scanners to scan your items, that's what the mobile application was developed for. The mobile application will also be no cost for the apps to units, but you will need to procure your own hardware if you wish to do that. And so the mobile apps will provide that barcode scanning technology. They also use the cameras on the tablets as well, so you don't even have to use a scanner if you don't want to. And they do have some, we have two versions, Android and iOS. So if you're a Surface Pro person, I apologize, but you're going to have to either choose Android or iOS. And when we get there, when your campus is on that cycle, we do want those really only loaded on university-owned devices. And again, we really are talking tablets. From the walkthrough of it, phones were just way too small to contain the information and to review that information. And so if you're going to buy a tablet, you're thinking of going that mobile app, we do have requirements in our training guide. It's an active hyperlink. I think you guys share the the PowerPoints, right? So that's an active hyperlink to our training guide, which does include the requirements for those tablets, which is really a matter of you got to be able to upgrade to a certain level of iOS or OS so that those are updated and secure on the network. Did want to give a shout out to our UIC advisory team members. I see many in the audience today and just want to thank them for their hard work working with us to create the app. So a little bit about current and future process. So current, if you finished in 2018, you know what you've always done is run your inventory list out of Eddy. Go into Eddy and get your list, and you guys have your own procedures historically at the unit level to do your physical observations, updates of items, etc. And then you guys would normally just provide our office with the signed paper forms confirming you've completed the certification, as well as then the units have been responsible to retain all of your work papers. So a few things about the future process. All units will have the option to use all the functionality within the Biennial Inventory app to verify and update items. Units will be required to certify online in the new system, will no longer accept the paper forms. And the new system will allow now comments to help you manage the process. Is anything you want to share at the end of the process, as well as there's a place to upload any files that you want to keep in a repository so that you have those in future periods. You don't have to rely on that paper file and what happened to it. So what will BI do? It's really going to help the unit contact, conduct that physical inventory from the point of tracking each item, looking at the item status, doing the item updates, handling found items. In the new application, item updates can be pushed directly to Banner. You won't have to go back into FabWeb and re-push those updates in. As I noted, you will be certifying online, and as well as the system will provide results now, documented results, which you and your unit and your unit head will be able to see very clearly. So I get asked a lot, well, what about FabWeb? FabWeb is really unchanged. FabWeb's still going to be used for new acquisitions of equipment. You'll still be working out of the same FabWeb inbox. Updates to existing assets, disposals, interdepartmental transfers will all be processed exactly historically as they have in FabWeb. So FabWeb is really unchanged. And the Biennial Inventory app is really meant to do that physical inventory, update your records, and certify your inventory in that window. FabWeb reps and approver roles. These are the folks who do all that daily transactional work in FabWeb. Those roles will be unchanged, except that if you already have that role now, you will have read access only into the new Biennial Inventory system. So a little bit about the web app. Everything's done at the 6-digit org level. It's a little more granular than what we used to certify at just the 3-digit level. It's going to allow you to update the items directly into Banner. It's going to help track found and unfound items, help you generate transfer and disposal batch files, as well as complete the full inventory process from the start to certification. So a few of the application benefits. There's going to be a dashboard for reviewing your inventory progress. You're going to actually be loading your inventory items in BI, not Eddy. There's actually going to be built-in role assignment, which I'll talk about a little bit, as well as some really new great display search and filters for the inventory list, as well as some very nice updates and lookups as far as updating items. And of course, we did talk about we'll be certifying online. So I just wanted to show some of these. I know it may not be the greatest format for viewing this morning, but I'll try to describe these as well just to give you a quick overview. This is a copy of the dashboard or the home status page. So this is where unit heads, unit contacts, and any other staff with that read-only access can see the progress and the results. And on here you'll see it's got unverified items, verified items, pending unfound items, so it's going to track these in real time throughout the process as people complete their verifications. And you can also communicate via notes and comments within the system through the dashboard as well. This is just a quick screenshot of the load list function in Biennial Inventory. Again, users will no longer need to go out to Eddy to run their inventory list. When you come into the system, it's going to know what permissions you have in the system, and it's going to pull up all those orgs for you to load. And the loading is really then the snapshot you're going to use throughout the cycle of what items you're trying to verify and certify. So we talked about built-in role assignments. This is going to allow unit contacts to assign unit specialists access to data in their org. So if you're a unit contact, you'll be able to assign as many unit specialists in your unit as you need to assign to complete your physical verification. Unit specialist is a new role also, and they will just have some limited capabilities. They'll be able to do the physical inventory, note the item status, and note the updates needed on the records, but the specialist won't be able to push those into Banner. It's going to be a process where the unit contact reviews those updates, and they're the ones responsible to push those into Banner. So we do have some nice search display and filters. Again, everything's going to be based on the 6-digit org. And really, I think the search functionality is going to be one of the nicer things. You can filter and search for data in the system. We tried to make it as flexible as possible so people can use it similar to the way their old processes worked. A lot of people have asked, can I do an inventory by room? The answer is absolutely yes. You just put your Banner location code in the search box. It's going to filter down to all the items that are in that room, and you can do your inventory by room. But you can also search by anything else: custodian, equipment manager, description, commodity, anything. So feedback has been very positive about this, and as well as some easy lookups for updating items. When we did the walkthrough before we designed the system, we did get a lot of feedback about the difficulty in updating custodians and equipment managers, as well as location codes. So those now all have individual lookups with smart searches to help you get that information populated and into the system. You'll also be certifying online. And there's really going to be two ways to certify. If there are any units, and I'll say this now, there may not be a lot of you, but if you are a system that runs a shadow system and has already invested some money and effort into your inventory system, you can continue to use that, but you'll have to come into the system at the end and certify your information in the system and also provide documentation of your results, as well as file uploads of your results. So if you're in that situation, don't hesitate to call me. So a few other application features just wanted to mention is managing found items. This is a function that helps your unit to track those found items that aren't on your inventory list. And if you actually have a P tag that say you scan or you find, but it doesn't belong in your org, the system will pull the Banner information down for you to review that, so you can see if that item could be potentially disposed or belong to another unit, is why you're not seeing it in your active inventory. That information will be there to help you. There's also going to be the possibility to print P-tag labels. So you don't have to contact our office to get a replacement label if a label has fallen off that item. There's a functionality in the system to print those off on Avery labels on your own printer. And as well as the transfers and the disposal batch files, there'll be an avenue for all of your pending unfound items that you never found, that you can go in and create a batch upload file for those specific items that'll create the batch upload feeder file for you for FabWeb. And that's a lot of Fs, I think. Did want to mention that our preliminary feedback from Urbana has been great. They really like the web version of the system. Not many people have used the mobile yet, so we're still waiting on results, but hopefully you guys will like it as much as they do. So to talk a little bit about the mobile app is really just a subset of the features of the web app, mainly used if you want to go for out in the field to verify items in real time. And again, using the scanners and the barcodes. The mobile data will get synchronized to the web application automatically if you're on a wireless network. If you're doing an inventory on the mobile app and you're out of the wireless network, it'll cache it on the device. And when you come back into the university network, that information will flow out into the web app so you can see it there as well. As I said, the mobile app is free, but units are responsible for hardware. And if you have any questions about that, please don't hesitate to give me a call or an email. So really wanted to talk about the rollout. I'm also happy to announce that the East Side 2018 is 100% certified from 2018. I'll give yourselves a hand. So really talking about our rollout, first use at UIC is going to be for you guys certifying in March of 2019. And if you're doing that, the system is going to be available for you to use as early as July or August this year. There's going to be instructor-led trainings scheduled here at UIC starting in August. Those will be on the registration page probably here in the next month, and when those get on the registration page, we will send out correspondence through OBFS News Center, and I will also forward that to folks who are FabWeb users and unit contacts so that those people see that correspondence that those training courses are open. Just a bit about training, the dates and who should attend. So again, if you're doing it in 2019, your unit contacts and any direct reports who are involved in the process should come to training. Again, so if you're due in 2020, you'll train in fall 2019. But if you're doing it on the west side and you're doing it in 2019 with your 2019 due date, we'll start those trainings in the fall of 2018, again in August. So be on the lookout for those communications. And please appreciate your support and encouragement to your unit contacts to go to training. The system is really designed with them being the running the system and using all the functionality, so they have a lot to learn in the new system. So I do highly encourage all those folks to get to training. Any questions for Caven? Yeah. The specialist? Yes. It can be a student as long as, and I think extra help as well, as long as they have a net ID. So it can't be an external somebody. They have to be at the university and have a net ID to be assigned. Good question. Is there another one? Nope.
Yeah, just from a registration standpoint for the training that's going to happen this fall starting that August time frame, again, just emphasize who that's for.
Sure. Yeah. Excuse me. Unit contacts in general. If you don't know who your unit contact is, our office keeps a spreadsheet of all those people who you and your unit designate as your unit contact and your designated unit head. That's on our equipment management main page under Department Property Contacts. But really those unit contacts are going to be the key role in the system and really need to learn and understand how to use the full functionality of the system. So definitely those people should come to training, and anybody who else is going to be involved, they should bring along with them. One of the things interesting about training is we're actually doing it in production. So that's why people who are doing it in 2020 don't need to come next year because they won't have any access to the system yet. But if you're doing it in 2019, definitely have your unit contacts and the rest of their staff sign up for training. Thanks, Jason. All right, with that, thank you.
as part of the alignment activities, the government costing office is an office that is staying and being a little bit reconstituted at the system level. I'm pleased to say that some additional resources have been supported for that office. And so I look forward to working with that group and to working with you on costing activities as we move forward to get a very great environment around that. And today Maureen Johnson is here to talk to you a little more about some training opportunities.
Thank you, Gloria. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Maureen Johnson from the University Government Costing Office, and as Gloria was just saying, I just put a few bullets on the slide to kind of say who we are. So that we've always had a government costing office here in Chicago, but we were part of the Grants and Contracts Department. So generally, the director of the Grants and Contracts Department or one of those representatives would give our updates. But as of January 1st of this year, after the president's realignment, we now have a university-wide government costing office. So we have staff in Urbana and in Chicago, and we actually work on, we work for all three campuses, UIS, UIUC, and UIC. So currently we have one staff member in Chicago, that's me, and but we have hired 2 new staff members that will be starting in June, so we're very excited about that. And we are still part of, we're one of the system offices, so we're still part of OBFS. I just kind of wanted to share kind of what we do for people who may not know. We develop rates, various rates, and all of the rates that we develop are charged to sponsored awards. So we developed the federal facilities and administrative rate for all 3 of the universities. Actually, our current rate for Chicago is scheduled to expire on June 30th of this year. So we actually submitted a proposal on March 30th, and we are already in the audit process for our next F&A rate negotiation. And I'll give you a little update about that in a minute. We developed the fringe benefit rate. That's an annual process for us. And we get inquiries all the time from different business managers when you're preparing your proposal about what will the rate be for next year. So we developed that rate in July, and we try to communicate it by the beginning of August of each year. So the FY19 fringe benefit rates will be communicated around the 1st of August. We developed the tuition remission rate. Chicago is a little bit different. We've had the same rate for about 10 years now. It hasn't changed, but our office is responsible for calculating that rate. Once we calculate each of these rates and submit the proposal to the government, there's actual federal audit that follows each of these submissions. And when we conclude the audit, we actually negotiate a final rate with the government, and those are the rates that you all charge to your sponsored awards. We have a state F&A reporting requirement now that's kind of new. We actually developed a state F&A rate, and we actually have a communication that will be coming out really soon about that. So look forward to that. That's still pretty new. And we develop service activity rates and training. So that's the one exciting item I want to talk to you guys about today, just more of an update. We recently, if you all saw the communication, we had a policy update and went out on Friday. We're very excited about that. It's in section 22 of the OBFS policy and procedure manual. And I want to talk to you about some training activities that we have around that policy update, and encourage you all to please send your staff. So these are the updates. As I just said, we submitted a F&A proposal on March 30th of this year. We are in the audit process. The audit is a 2-step process, so there's a space audit that we do, and then there's a financial audit. Last year, our F&A proposal is based on FY17's financial and space data, so you all did a space survey for FY17. We in turn used that space survey data in our proposal. So the auditors will be coming out in June. They're in the process of selecting their samples, the rooms they want to see, the departments that they want to see, and as soon as they give us the final sample, we will reach out to each of your department gatekeepers and business managers and let you know that we'll be coming out to tour your space. This probably happens every 3-4 years, so some of you are experienced in this area, but we will try to have you all as prepared as possible before the auditors come. They will have copies of your space surveys that you submitted, as well as your floor plans. So if there's any, and I'll send those to you to let you know what we provided to them before we come out. If there's any changes, just please let us know, so that we can, just be prepared for their questions before they come. There's also an equipment audit that goes on at the same time as the space audit. So last year, we worked with Jeff Weaver's department, and we contacted a bunch of units and asked you all, or asked the department contacts if they could code their equipment to room if possible. The auditors will select various pieces of equipment that they'll want to see while we're out touring the space, and so we'll let you all know what those pieces of equipment are. They actually want to come physically look at them and check the P-tag numbers. So just so you know, we're asking that you all be prepared. If you have any questions, please call me, and I'll definitely be in contact. Once they finish up the space audit, they'll go into the financial audit. So some departments will be contacted about transactions. It just depends on what they're going to test. So I don't have an idea of exactly what they're testing yet, but as soon as I find out, I definitely will be in contact with your offices. As I said a minute ago, our F&A rate is scheduled to expire on June 30th of this year. We're actually, because the audit is not complete, we will be receiving a provisional rate for FY19. We're in the process of finalizing that rate now. So we've determined what the rate will be, and the university will sign off on that today, and the government will sign off on it sometime this week, and then we'll communicate that rate via OBFS News DDDH to you all, so that you can start using that for your FY19 proposals. Updated and combined service and storeroom activity policy. So again, the communication went out regarding that on Friday. We're very excited. That policy is related to 3E fund types only that supplement, and so it's the storerooms and service activities. So, or anyone that actually charges their rate to sponsored awards. So we're asking that you ask your departmental business managers or anyone who manages a 3E service fund to take a look at this policy. It could potentially result in you needing to recompute your rates. The policy is not new, it's updated. So it's updated to the uniform guidance that came out in December of 2014. But UIC just hadn't updated the policy yet. So please, please, please have your departments review this. We've created training. So we have service activity training and resources available. We have instruction-led training, as well as we have a OBFS certification program, which I'm sure Amber will talk about a little bit. Or I know she has over the last few months. But we have instructor-led training. We started it in April. We've been doing it weekly, and we'll do that through June. So we have one on Thursday of this week, and then we have one in June. And then we decided to, kind of give it a break in June, the end of June and July, because we know that people are busy. So we'll start again in August. So they're listed here through December. The link is here to the registration page on the OBFS website. The link is also here for the web-based program. It's a self-based program. So once you register, you have 4 months to complete that training. If you decide to do the online training, it's 8 modules, but it's a lot of good information related to the policy. Our department, since we have new staff coming aboard, we plan to reach out to more service activity fund 3E funds and actually offer our services, actually ask to help you calculate rates, provide the tools. We have a lot of resources on the OBFS website under government costing, so we have templates if you don't have one to compute your rate. There's Webby reports to help you pull a salary, expenditures, equipment depreciation. So there's a lot of good information out there on the OBFS website. So we ask that you please take a look. If you have any questions about the new service activity policy update, please contact our office and let us know. So with that, that's all the updates I have, unless you have questions for me. I love this group.
Okay, I'm not going to introduce her twice. Amber Munns is up next for both Source to Pay and the OBFS certification program to give you some updates on both of those initiatives.
Well, good afternoon, and I'm excited to be here to talk about both of these initiatives because I think they are ways that you can get involved and have an impact on things that impact you every day. So first I'm going to talk about the Source to Pay initiative, and I'm Amber Munz, the Director of Business Solutions and Support. A lot of my staff have been directly a part of this initiative, and for anyone that has not had a chance to be a part of this yet or have seen the communications go out and just are not sure if you want to be involved, there's more opportunities to be involved coming up soon. So this Source to Pay initiative is really everything that today envelops catalogs, purchase order functionality, contracting, as well as non-purchase order reimbursement type activity. So there's a lot of scope here that probably impacts all of you. So really in April, we were able to finalize the BPI improvement conversations that many of you were a part of and pull together an RFP draft that we have shopped around to everyone for their additional feedback and have gotten that refined. We hope to post that RFP later this summer and actually then start communicating as well what we can do to include anyone who would like to be a part of the vendor demonstrations and actually see the products that are out in the marketplace and see how well or how close we can get to the requirements that we've gathered from all of you. So when that is posted this summer, we'll also be communicating ways that you can be a part of evaluating those vendors, as well as additional opportunities for those that were part of the BPIs to help ensure that those vendors are being scored based on the requirements that were gathered. So watch for those communications to be going out through the OBFS news. If you are today signed up to get anything relative to purchasing, payables, contracting, you will see those communications go through. And if you're not sure, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm now going to shift focus and talk about the OBFS certification program. Maureen is right. There is a lot of exciting stuff happening here, including theirs. But there is also some updates being made to the inviting and onboarding, and we're hoping that can be offered again in the fall or maybe next spring. We hope to get that confirmed over the next several months and communicate that out more in the fall when these meetings start happening again. But as you can see, the last 5 or 6 certification programs relative to department card manager, journal voucher processing, business administrator program, time entry reporting, and student payments are all scheduled to be offered at some point this fall. So there's a lot of development going on, a lot of design. I know they're going out and talking to people relative to the data that they're collecting based on who performs those activities, and that these will prove to be a very exciting offering in the fall. So those will be communicated out broadly. But one thing I want to focus on today is really the Business Administrator Certification Program. This one has been talked about a lot, and there are potential for up to 30 courses. We will see what the final list of courses are. But the program goal is really to give a broader basis for understanding of all the business and financial duties that happen in the administration offices within the units, as well as within those offices that support those units. So this will really focus on those processes, policies, procedures, as well as resources that anyone in that role needs to be successful. The impact is not only to the college's units and departments, but also to OBFS staff and other supporting staff at administrative roles. So we're really focusing this role on the functions that people will be performing, not where they reside in the university structure. So this summer, We will be opening up the nomination period. Right now, we're working out the logistics with everyone who will be the instructors for those courses. So we're talking not only those people from university system offices that support business and administration, but also university offices. So we will have a lot of coordination with those offices to ensure that we can communicate well the dates and times. So if you do want to be a part of the program, you know exactly the commitment that you're making up front. So please watch the OBFS news announcements for updates as to when that nomination period opens this summer. And that will give you then a good 2 months in advance to know what your calendar will be like if you want to be a part of the program. And if you have any questions, concerns, comments, please reach out to the certification program team. I'm sure these will go out with the notes for today's meeting. They have a website as well that can provide more information. Thank you.
So not that I'm competitive in any way or anything, but feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to have UIC have a full cohort in the Business Administrator Development Program. The current plan is to have the cohorts from each of the universities meet simultaneously via a video format. And then when there are university-specific things, I will get over that someday. When there are university-specific things to address processes that happen specific to a location, then we'll do breakout sessions to make that possible as well. But I'm very excited. 25 years in coming, I'm just so excited that we're actually going to launch in September. All the instructors have been more than cooperative and willing to come work with you and chat with you as we move through it. Kind of the idea is 3 sessions during some period of a day every month. So be groundbreaking and come join us so that you can give us feedback in this inaugural year and make it even better as we move forward. All right, next up, Don Smith is going to talk to us about UPB training initiatives going on.
Good afternoon. I've been giving you some updates as we've gone along throughout the past year, but I wanted to let you know where we're at now. So University Payroll and Benefits has developed this project of trying to address the training needs that you as a unit are facing when it comes to payroll transactions and the benefits issues that involve you. So what we are focusing on are the transactions, unit challenges, and employee needs. And in order to do that, we have developed some tracks, a curriculum, so that we can focus all of those different needs into their functional areas. And we are also seeking customer input throughout. We, even more than just going to you and asking, this is a collaborative project. As you saw with what Amber was talking about, some of this rolls into the certification program, and we have support through Business Solutions and support for project management as well as instructional design. So this is a pretty good sized undertaking, and we are involving lots of people in this so that we can develop the best products possible. So here are the learning tracks, the curricula. Several of these are in progress right now, and the newest one being time reporting. It is just starting in the research phase, as well as some of these others that we are continually adding to as we work through these particular topics. So I want to start off with the ones that are in process. Time reporting, we have completed some job aids and a course involving the time entry and approval security process, because we know that one of the biggest pain points that we have heard from is when people lose access or have trouble getting access to do their units' time approvals or some of the other security issues that are involved there. So we have set up these job aids and this course to help you navigate that process. And we are just now beginning the research phase for these other topics, and we'll have courses on these and resources available for an introduction to time reporting, best practices, so we can learn how to avoid adjustments, time entry troubleshooting, and department time entry, as well as web time entry. We've begun analyzing data on adjustments to find out why, what's going wrong with time reporting, because if it doesn't go right in time reporting, that's when it shows up as a payroll adjustment. So we're analyzing that. We're looking at who we're going to be speaking with and trying to involve the units that are doing very well so that we can identify best practices and provide helpful resources for you so that time entry can be a lot more successful than it has been. Payments to foreign nationals, we've completed courses and job aids and awards and prizes, expense reimbursements, and honoraria. And we are in progress with job aids and courses as needed for human subject payments, scholarships, fellowships, royalties, and independent contractors. So look to see new resources coming up frequently, and that is all housed on the Foreign National Payments resource page. I will show you a little bit about that later. Benefits fundamentals, we have also developed courses and job aids to help mostly with the supplemental retirement plans. There's a lot of information there that you can find out, as well as information for when you hire and onboard new employees, some of those important, crucial deadlines for getting their benefits set up so they don't get defaulted into the state plan, which isn't always what people want. So we have information out there. We hope you look at that so that you can help your employees as they come into the university. Inviting and onboarding foreign nationals. We have 4 different modules to this. This is a certification course, and it has already been implemented. We have had more than 50 individuals certified to date, and we hope for more to happen. In the upcoming year, we're going to be making some revisions based on changes to immigration policy and other things that are happening with the law that may be changing or might not be changing. We're kind of waiting to find out how everything is going to shake out on that. But there will be some revisions that come out with that. And if you have already been certified in that, we will certainly send you updated materials so that you can keep current. So we would like to ask you to join us as learning partners. You can help us by telling us what is good about these processes, what's not, how we can help you do them better. If you would like to help with that, you can contact OBFS UPB training at uillinois.edu. And now I just want to show you very briefly where the Foreign National Payments resource page is. And I've marked where it's at on the OBFS homepage. So if you want to, I'm sure all of you have the homepage, the OBFS homepage in your favorites or bookmarked in some way because you have to go there so often. But if you are doing any transactions for foreign nationals, or you have staff that are doing transactions for foreign national non-resident aliens, we really want to encourage you to go to the Foreign National Payments resource page. If you click on either of these links, it's also under the resources section. You will find the page here. We have things that are rolled up in accordions so that you can easily walk through the steps for doing this, each different transaction type. as well as down below resources by payment type, where we have, if you are looking at a specific type of payment and you already know about it and you want to find the resource you're looking for, you can find it easily right there. So I want to encourage everybody to develop that habit of going to this page so that you can be consistent in your transactions for non-resident aliens. So if you have any questions, I can answer those now, and if not, if it comes to you after the meeting, feel free to contact me. There's my phone number and email address, and I'd be willing to speak with you if you have anything to add. So any questions? All right, thank you for your time.
Okay, I mentioned before that the president would like us to have a clean slate with audit, oh, let me hit you in the face. Clean slate with audit findings. So John LaRoe is here to help us be perfect relative to all of those things accounting-wise.
Thank you, Gloria. My name is John LaRoe. I'm with University of Accounting and Financial Reporting. And now that we're here in May, June and July is right around the corner, so I wanted to come up and just give a few tips to keep in mind with all the year-end opening and closing procedures that we have out there. Before we get into that, though, I first off want to thank you just for all the help that you've given us in the past year on the different audit requests that we've had. As Gloria was mentioning and alluding to, the external auditors are constantly asking for all kinds of audit support for different kinds of transactions they select, and we strongly rely on you for that accurate information and documentation that you give us. So I first off want to give a big thanks to you, because we could not meet those audit request demands without your help, and we greatly appreciate it. And actually thank you in advance as well, because those audit requests for the new year are already starting. So just a fair warning, you may be hearing from someone from our office at some point just for cash receipts testing, for example, or expenditures testing, or whatever it may be. So just thanks in advance too for all the new requests coming in for the new year. And just as an FYI, a lot of the common audit issues that we see from year to year, a lot of them unfortunately don't change. Gloria touched on some of these, like not recording the accruals and deferrals properly. Other ones, such as the proper account code usage, or errors in physical inventory counts for those of you that may have inventory for resale. Those are common issues that do come in. It really is important to keep that account code in mind when you're coding your transactions. So I just want to throw that in there as well to keep in mind. We'll talk about this more later too, but just as far as getting your expense reports in to TEM on a timely basis, the quicker you can get those expense reports in, the better chances we have of getting that expense report recorded in the proper fiscal year. I know Payables has all the way through the end of period 12 to get those expense reports backdated if they do relate to the current year that we're closing out. But they are just absolutely swamped at year end with trying to get it through as many expense reports as they can. So if you can do them a favor and get your expense reports in as fast as you can, it gives them a better chance of actually getting through that and getting that posted to the correct year. The quicker the better. So I know some of you may have professors out there or staff members that may be lacking on getting their expense reports in time for some travel they've done throughout the last semester. But if you can, try to tactfully suggest to them to get those in the sooner the better, to make sure we get those in the right fiscal year. And also too, for any of those who do have self-supporting activities, just make sure you get those fact sheets submitted in time so we can get the proper entries made there. Just moving on to the inventory for resale issues that we do see. One thing to keep in mind there is just to make sure if you do have any inventory for resale on these self-supporting or service plan activities, make sure you get those accurate physical inventory counts done as of June 30th. In some years, such as this coming year, the June 30th may actually fall on a weekend, like on a Saturday. So if you don't really want to come in on a Saturday to do your physical inventory count, that's fine. But one thing you want to keep in mind is, let's say you say to yourself, I'm not coming in this weekend to do that count. I'm just going to do it on Monday the 25th and knock it out and be done with it. That's fine, and you can do that. But just if you do that, make sure you take into account any activity that takes place after your physical inventory count. So if you do your count on the 25th, but then on the 26th through the 29th, you buy some more inventory, you actually sell some of that inventory, just make sure you take that activity into account and factor that into whatever you counted on the 25th. So then your ending result that you report on the fact sheets on that June 30th balance is really accurate that way. that's just a very easily overlooked thing. So I just wanted to mention that. And as always, just take advantage of the different training opportunities we have and the different webinars we have. We have Jason Bain out here in the audience who does a fantastic job of leading the different webinars for year-end issues and the fact sheet issues. We actually have two for each, two year-end webinars and 2 fact sheet webinars. So I would highly suggest, if you have the time, to sign up for those and listen in. They're very helpful resources. And then on our Who to Ask webpage, we're so specialized and there's so many different areas within our office. We have a list of people who specialize in those certain areas. So using the account codes is another example. If you go to this Who to Ask page and go to the A of the account codes, it'll take you right to the straight person who you need to talk to help clarify those questions. So that's just another great place to bookmark if you can. And as in past years, if your unit is involved in any kind of audit finding, similar to past few years, you will continue to receive those notification letters just summarizing your involvement in the issue, what the issue was, and recommendations to try to improve those for going forward. So just keep that in the back of your mind as well. Because if you can avoid these letters, it's probably a good thing if you can avoid getting one of these. So now that we're through the audit issues, let's talk about some tips for year end. And really one of the main things I recommend when someone asks me, what can I do to get ready, is I point them to our year-end website and strongly suggest that they print out that year-end opening and closing document. It's a fairly large file, but it's really worth to go ahead and print that out. And once you get it, go through the various dates and the deadlines that are listed in there. Just start adding those to your Outlook calendar if that helps. Or maybe just keep it next to your desk and just go through that every day. As you come in each day, look at that date, say what's due today, what do I need to knock off today, and just check it off your list. And there's many dates on there for the different things that you need to keep in mind. And we don't have time to go through everything in this presentation today. But I will just go through a few just for some different examples. But keep in mind that this is not by no means an exhaustive list. So as I was mentioning earlier, those webinars that I really want you to attend with Jason, here's the dates for those. There's two for each one, like I said, so hopefully between those dates, one of those sets will work for you. For any of those that you may have gift funds, let's say if you're sitting on a large gift fund balance and banner, you don't really have much use for it right now. If you want to reinvest any of those with the foundation to help earn some extra investment income, the deadline to do that is by this June 13th date. So as most of you obviously know, as all years, June 30th is the final day of the fiscal year. So just keep in mind any P cards, T cards, things of that nature, that June 30th is the last swipe date for any transactions relating to FY18. And anything swiped after that relates to the new fiscal year. So just keep that in mind when you're reviewing and approving those T card and P card transactions. And once again, since June 30th falls on a Saturday this year, and a very important thing to keep in mind is on the Friday before the 29th, make sure you go through your desk and get any remaining checks, deposits, anything of that nature that you haven't deposited yet, collected and brought to the cashiering office by 2 p.m. that afternoon on Friday the 29th. It's really important if you receive that cash or check within FY18 to get that deposited by that deadline on Friday. So just make sure you got that on your calendar. So then the next day, July 1st, obviously starts the new fiscal year. And a couple of confusing points there. Once that new fiscal year opens, you're going to have basically 2 state funds open. You had both the 1018 and the 1019 state fund open for the next 2 months, all the way through the end of August. So for those next 2 months, it's really important to take into mind when you're using your state fund and coding transactions, just ask yourself, what year does this transaction relate to? Is this relating to FY19 business or FY18 business? And just be really careful on which state fund you use in that time period. And also when you're dating and doing your JVs, make sure you're thinking really carefully when you're in July, is this transaction something I'm doing to correct my period 12 statements and get things in order for FY18, or is this actually new business for FY19? Because during those first 2 weeks of July, period 12 is still open. So you can backdate those to June 30th or before if you want your transaction posting to the FY18 books. So just really important to keep in mind because it's such an easy thing to overlook, the date on those JVs and transactions. So that's just another thing that can trip people up I wanted to mention. Okay, so now we're moving on down to July 5th is the next day I wanted to point out. Something there is, going back to those P cards and T cards I was referring to earlier in the expense reports, make sure those are reconciled and approved within your unit by this date. to make sure those can get through to payables, so payables has time to review and do the transactions and do their thing with them, so that those get in for FY18 business. So that's another important date to remember. And then on July 12th, for those of you that may want to move some labor charges around, if you have a fund and deficit, for example, or you think labor posted to a wrong place, in order to get those in for the period 12 statements for your FY18 books, make sure all those labor redistributions are completed by 5 p.m. on that Thursday, July 12th. And then on the 13th, the next day, for all those P-card transactions that we were talking about earlier, that were swiped with a date of June 30th or before, those really, in theory, relate to FY18 business, right? Because the swipe date was in June. So this is the last day that you can go into that P-card system and make sure those are reconciled and approved in time to make sure they actually post to FY18. So that's another really important date. And finally, once again, on the 13th, that's really the end of period 12 and the last day that you can do JVs to make any final corrections to your books that you want in on those period 12 statements. And honestly, if you could even try to work ahead and try to get all your entries made by the Thursday before, that, and then just use that Friday as kind of a review day for any last-minute corrections or things that got overlooked, that kind of could be a good rule of thumb as well. And it's something we honestly try to do within our office, because in that way you just have that extra buffer day for any last-minute emergencies that may blow up or come up. But if you really do need it, you do have till 5 p.m. that day on Friday to make any last-minute entries. So then after that's done, we're in period 14, and then our office within UAFR is the only ones allowed to make entries at that point. So what we ask you to do at that point is go ahead, and if you do have any of those self-supporting or service plan activities, get those fact sheets completed and submitted to us by that following Wednesday. And we have a very short time frame to get those reviewed and processed, so we greatly appreciate your ability to meet that deadline. And then on the Friday the 27th, that's the last day we have for our period 14 business and our entries. And then basically the fiscal year is closed out that Saturday after that, and that's it. And then once again, Friday, August 31st, at the end of August, that's the last day for the lapse period, and then that 1018 fund will finally be closed out after that. But once again, that's just a small sample of the various deadline dates that are out there, so don't just rely on these. I really strongly suggest printing out that document and just having that as a good tool and resource at your disposal throughout year end. So some of this, just some final general tips and reminders. Some of this may be repeat information, so I apologize, but I'll just, given how important it is, I want to mention it again. And I can't stress enough, just to help you pay out, how important it is to get those expense reports completed on a timely basis and submitted on a timely basis. And in order to help prevent any expense reports from getting sent back due to lack of descriptions, lack of details, which will just delay the whole process, be as descriptive as you can in those descriptions on your expense reports. You know, spell out the acronyms, what they mean, because just remember, those in UPay may not always know what the different acronyms that those within your office may mean. For example, even if you're going to a conference or something, like spell out the name of the conference as opposed to saying the ALC conference. You know, just tips like that to keep in mind. For anything, also on those expense reports, if you're paying for things that may span fiscal years, let's say you're paying for some of your professors' membership dues for the next year, or some data service subscriptions, make sure you put the date ranges of those in there, of whatever date ranges that subscription applies to, because what payables can do is they can note that and track that, and they have some behind the systems tricks that they can do to help us track that for accrual and deferral reporting. So really knowing what dates that these things you're paying for range from is very important and really helpful. Once again, as we talked about earlier, be really careful when you're doing your different JVs and feeder documents within period 12 to make sure that correct transaction date's being used, and make sure that correct state fund's being used as well during that time frame. And one common question I get on state funds during this time of year, kind of going back to what I was just talking about a second ago on the subscriptions and membership dues, they'll say, listen, I'm paying for some membership dues for my professor for the coming year, and I want to pay it off the state fund. But I thought the state fund can only be used for the years of the transaction that it relates to, so how do I work that? Because it may cross fiscal years. You know, it may start in May in FY18, and it doesn't end until FY19, the following April. So we've reached out to the comptroller's office on this, and what they've said is, if it starts in the fiscal year, such as FY18 this year, if the start period of the subscription time starts then you guys actually use that current year state fund to pay the entire expense. So let's say the subscription dues were $1,000, and it started, this May in FY18, and it ran all the way through FY19 next April. From the guidance they've given us, we can use that 1018 fund to pay for the entire thing. So that's just a little tricky thing that really doesn't line up with what you would typically think, but something to keep in mind. Or what you could also do too is use some kind of local fund, like an ICR fund or an unrestricted gift fund to pay for it. Put the date range in your expense report as always, and then you could transfer the FY18 portion over to your 1018 fund and the FY19 portion to your 1019 state fund. But that's not really necessary though. If you want to pay it all off your FY18 state fund, that is allowable. Some of this, like I've already mentioned before, to make sure you're being careful on those state funds. Don't use your 1018 transaction in general for things that relate solely to FY19 business or vice versa. And one last thing in a note to the state funds is make sure you're really paying attention in August to all your activity and make sure it's reconciled and depleted. Because I can't tell you the number of times I'll get a phone call in September or October where, call and say, hey, I taken a look over my August activity, and I realized I posted some things to the 1018 state fund that I shouldn't have, or I should have posted some things there that I didn't. Can I do it now in the fall? And every time I unfortunately have to say, no, it's officially closed. There's nothing we can do after August 31st. So just make sure you keep a close eye on things during August on your state activity to make sure everything that is on there that you need to be on there. And going back to the fact sheets, for those of you that do have self-supporting activity, you can actually get a head start and start tracking and collecting some of that data now. We actually have a new solely dedicated page to fact sheets now. It gives a nice summary of what fact sheets are, why we need them, why they're important. And it actually has our FY18 Excel tracking file on there. So if you've already collected some deferred revenue for some payments for things that are going to be happening in the next fiscal year, or you've already paid some prepaid expenses that you want to start tracking now, go ahead and download that file, put it to your desktop, and start adding those information to your Excel spreadsheet, and then you're already a step ahead for year end, and you don't have to worry about tracking and collecting all that information in July when it's even busier. So that's going to be a great new webpage. I'm really excited about that. And one other thing too is we're working on trying to make our fact sheet application a little more user-friendly this year. Not as many questions, getting rid of some of the questions that didn't really add as much value in the past. So I'm hoping you're going to be happy with what you see this year, and things will go a lot quicker for you that way as well. And once again, the fact sheet Excel file that goes along with that is really smart enough to calculate the accruals and deferrals for you. So going back to that prepaid expense example, let's say you paid $500 for some kind of expense that crosses fiscal years. We would just want you to put in the full $500 and the date range, and then the spreadsheet will actually calculate the appropriate amount of the prepaid expense for you. So don't worry about trying to calculate that yourself. Just put your stats in, and the spreadsheet will do the rest. One other thing to keep in mind too is if you do have these fact sheets and self-supporting activity you need to report, do not report any activity that may already be in the Banner system. For example, Banner AR is a current common example for accounts receivable. If you use Banner AR, then that receivable data is already going to be captured within the Banner system through the Banner AR process. So we would not want you to re-report that information to us on the fact sheets, because what would happen then, there would be a risk that we would duplicate that receivable entry in Banner. So you'd basically have two receivable entries in Banner for that one transaction, one on our fact sheets and one through Banner AR. So we obviously wouldn't want that. So just keep that in mind. If you already do have your accrual deferral recorded, then just omit it from your fact sheet, because we don't want to duplicate the entry. One other thing too, going back to your inventory, I know we touched on that earlier about getting the accurate date as of June 30th is really important. And once you do have that value, one other thing to keep in mind is that we need to report that inventory at the lower of cost or market. So what that means is we want to record in Banner the value of that inventory at whatever is lower, either what it historically cost you to buy that or what the current fair market value is. So if you bought that inventory, let's say there's $10,000 of it on hand, but the market has really dipped for it and there's not much demand for it anymore, and if you honestly look at it, you tell yourself, listen, I could probably only sell this for $5,000 if I was lucky, then we do not want that $10,000. At that point, that $10,000 is a pointless figure that's not really accurate anymore. We would, in that example, we would want the $5,000 figure, since that's lower. So we're taking the conservative route and recording the lower of cost or market. So when you are recording those inventory values to us, just keep in mind, is this value I'm reporting, the historical cost, is that the current fair market value as well? And if not, we need to report the lower fair market value. Just a few last random things here. If you have any old CFOPs, program codes, fund codes, things of that nature that you're done with, that you really don't use anymore, said, listen, I have this old self-supporting fund. I don't have anything running through it anymore. I don't want to submit fact sheets on this on a year-to-year basis. Just get those termination requests into us now. You can email uas@ulinois.edu or the standard CFOPL maintenance email address that we use, and just ask us, listen, I don't need this fund anymore. Please terminate it. And we'll get that done for you. So the sooner you can do that, the better here in May, because we do have a deadline of sometime in mid-June when we cut those terminations off. But that just gives you less CFOPs to manage going forward if you're really not using them. And then one last thing too, if you have any deficits you're trying to cover in different CFOPs, just make sure you're covering those through the appropriate channels. For example, if you have a state or ICR deficit, make sure you're working with a budget office and processing those through either a budget adjustment request form or some kind of appropriate expense transfers, as opposed to just doing some kind of lump sum transfer through an expense account code like 142900. A lot of times we'll see units try to attempt to do things like that through inappropriate channels, and we unfortunately have to help them reverse that and reprocess it the correct way. So if you could avoid that and just do it correct from the get-go, that'd be a big help to everybody. And finally, to wrap things up, just it's a confusing time of year, so when questions come up, just give us a call, use that Who to Ask list, and let us know. We're going to be working extra hours throughout the evenings and the weekends, so just give us a call, and if we don't answer the phone immediately, somebody will get back to you shortly. So thanks in advance for all your help, because we definitely appreciate it and definitely need you, because we could not do this without you. Here's my contact information if any issues come up later on that you want to reach out to me with. And is there any questions for now that anybody wants to throw out there? No? Okay. All right, well, thanks a lot, and thanks, Gloria. I'll stay here. Oh, yeah. Darren coming up here.
Yep. Darren Strader is going to join John to talk about travel categories.
Hi, my name's Darren Strader, and I'm here with John again. He's going to stand up here for support. We got a call from accounting, a couple months ago, and there were some troubles that they were having, a lot of extra work they were having to do because folks weren't picking the right travel category when they were entering their TEM expense report for, let's say, airfare or hotel stay or whatnot. And we have 26 expense types that have this box that says travel category, and within the box, let's see if we can find it. This looks familiar. There should be 6 entries in there, one for in-state, out-of-state, foreign, for reimbursements, in-state, out-of-state, foreign, travel, for payment to vendor, which is meant you used your T-card. So with that, I'm going to go back up here. There's a lot of different account codes that stand behind each of those selections you make. You don't have to know the actual code, but you do need to be able to select the right thing from the drop-down list. And it's important because, well, we report to the state of Illinois, and the state of Illinois needs to have that granular. So instead of having somebody to enter in the account code and have problems doing that, they stand behind the expense type that you use. And of course, properly accounting for things is all part of compliance auditing, and it's always probably a finding that we have. Again, back to the categories, there's 6, and we find that a lot of people just simply pick the first one. And so, and a lot of, you had a chance of, selecting one of the 6, but they just pick that, they move on, they go. There's really nothing that's going to tell you it's wrong because the account code is correct. and it fits with the focal that you're using, it doesn't get hung up when it goes to Banner and the cross-focal check, so it goes. So there's no problem with it, except for it was done incorrectly. The incorrect code was used. And Bridget Toe, who's not with us here today, when she was talking to me on the phone, said that in the first 8 months of 2018 fiscal year, that this was selected wrong 4,328 times, okay, which means at least thousands of correcting JVs that accounting had to do to make sure that these were classified and coded accurately. Beginning in July of this year, which would be the first day of our new fiscal year, accounting's going to be contacting units to make those corrections instead of doing them for them. They find it's a huge time crunch, and it's something that departments can speak to their travelers to remind them that to use the right, pick the right selection so the right count code is used. And that's it. This is just basically a tack on to all the year-end stuff that John had to say. If anybody has any questions about that, comments?
Can I add one thing too?
Yeah.
And in this current year, what we're doing is, oh, sorry.
Yeah, come on up.
In the current year, what we're doing is we're making some correcting entries kind of behind the scenes, I guess you could say. So you may not see those directly on your financial statements, and we're just trying to send the emails out now this year as more of an educational opportunity. But then starting in FY19, if we continue seeing this to continue happen, what we'll do is probably work with you and actually make a corrected entry on your direct CFOP. So it's directly on the same CFOP and put to the right account code within your org and program code and so forth. So just an FYI, if you get one of those emails this year, don't worry about making any correcting entries, but just keep it in mind for going forward. And then if it continues to happen, we'll work with you to get those corrected in FY19 and going forward on your actual CFOPs. So I know that's been one confusing point this came up.
We've gotten a lot of response back from the emails they've sent out, and business managers a lot of times weren't aware that this was happening, so they were going to talk with their travelers as well. So keep your eye on that. I did want to take the opportunity to let you know that if you haven't noticed, you probably will if anybody uses the Amazon for Business account. We now have Amazon for Business Prime shipping, so our free shipping disappeared for a while because we ran out of a time period where it was a free offer, and people didn't like that, so Gloria graciously told us to pull the trigger on purchasing the Business Prime. So anything that's Prime eligible in the Amazon for Business account, you'll get your free shipping. So that ought to make a big difference in the amount that you're paying for things. But I do have to tell you too, for folks in purchasing would say, this is not the way to do it if we have a contract with somebody. You need to use our contracts that are established, the punch-out vendors through iBuy. But we also know that there's a lot of stuff that can't be purchased through there, and Amazon tends to be a really good place to go to do it. So there you have it. Thank you very much.
So travel continues to be one of those things that gets looked at very carefully. I sit on the Higher Education Travel Control Board, and I think the good news is that they have carved out a niche at the state of Illinois for higher education, with the understanding that there are certainly different applications for travel that are eligible in the higher education space. There is also a Governor's Travel Control Board, and there's a lot of scrutiny in terms of travel. Many more strict rules coming down there that we are having to look at as well. So the more accurate we can be with our travel reporting, the better. We don't want everybody to think that we're flying off to Europe every day. All right, next up, updates from the reporting subcommittee, Brian Weaver and Colleen Kehoe. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Colleen Kehoe from OVCR, and joining me for the presentation will be Brian Weaver from College of Nursing. We just wanted to provide you with some information about what the reporting subcommittee has been up to for the last several months. First of all, our team has grown so large we can hardly fit on the slide. So that's actually been a really great benefit to our group. We seem to have generated a lot of interest, and there's always room for more. I can squeeze people on the other side of the slide. So if this sounds interesting to you, feel free to contact us and join us. In the fall, we conducted a survey of members of the business community here, and one of the results from that survey was that we found out that a lot of people on campus had experience with business objects, with running their own reports, but that the number of people who actually felt comfortable creating and modifying reports was much lower. And that there was a lot of interest from people in wanting to be able to make that leap into the next category, to be able to create and modify their own reports. And so to address that, we put together a session at the BAT conference called a Deep Dive into Web Intelligence. So we heard from Bernadette's office that it was the most highly subscribed session at the BAT conference. So, no pressure on us at all. But it really tells us that we kind of have put our finger on a real opportunity to help improve the campus and our reporting capabilities. So we gave that session. It was very well attended and well received. And I wanted to let you know that the resources from that session are available on our website. So one thing that you'll find there is the slides from the session, which define a lot of key terms in business objects, which is really half the battle to using business objects, figuring out what's WebE, what's EDI, what's EDW. So you'll find definitions of those terms, and also an overview of some of the most commonly used finance universes. And finally, the heart of the presentation was a live demonstration of how to put together a WebE report. In the slides, we actually have a step-by-step screenshots that show you where to click for each step to put together your report. So it's a great starting point if it's something you're interested in but you haven't done before. It would be a great resource for you to look at and work your way through. It also shows you how to modify reports that you find in the solution library, because all of us who work on reports know that you don't start from a blank slate. You usually find something that does something similar to what you want to do and then start tweaking it. So this shows you how you can go through that process. Additionally, we have a handout available. The first side of the handout just gives you information about the reporting subcommittee, but the second side tells you step by step what do you need to do to get started with web intelligence. Where do you need to go? What do you need to click? And most importantly, what do you tell your USC in terms of what access you need to be granted? So it's all laid out there for you, as well as how to contact members of the subcommittee. You can find all of that on our reporting subcommittee website, which you can find by going to the OBFS homepage, and under the resources section, kind of halfway down, you'll find the OBFS UIC reporting subcommittee link. If you're prompted for a username and password, it's just your regular UIC net ID to access it. I also wanted to let you know about some resources that your peers around campus who are part of the reporting subcommittee have made available. Some of our folks have volunteered to come out and give this presentation, our deep dive presentation, or something a little more customized for your unit. If you have a group that would like to have a presentation done at your college or department or research group or whatever kind of group you're part of. So if you're interested in that and having some folks come out to your location, you can email us at reports@uic.edu. That goes to a couple members of the reporting subcommittee, and we can schedule that with you. We also have our listserv, business@listserv.uic.edu. That's for any members of the business community here on campus to share ideas, questions, needs. It's a listserv, so messages sent to that address will go to all the members of the listserv. It is moderated for relevant content, so you're not going to get random messages that aren't relevant to that topic. If you want to join, the link is there, and again, they'll be in the slides that get sent out, or you can join through email as well. Another thing, if you work with sponsored projects, especially the proposal side, you are probably very excited to have that proposal data available in the EDW now. That came out a few months ago. So there's new pre-award universes on proposals, awards, and subawards. So one project that our subcommittee is taking on is we would like to learn more about these universes. So what we're going to be doing is going back to some of our older reports that use the old UIERA universes and updating them to use the new universes. So that's kind of our little project that we'll be taking on, some of us will be taking on over the next few months as a way to learn about those universes and update our reports. So if that sounds something you would like to learn about, now is a good time to join our committee. As we create new reports with these universes, we'll be adding them to the solution library, so you'll be able to access them there. And now I'll turn it over to Brian, who's going to talk about one of the reports that we have under development.
Thanks, Colleen. I didn't want to stand awkwardly behind her while she was going, so I figured I'd go over there. As Colleen mentioned, we sent out a survey this last year, and one of the items that was a common theme was the need for reports that helped to project, either be fund balances or project a budget balance available over a certain period. So one report that we're currently working on is a grant projection tool, so a grant kind of executive summary and projection tool that uses the web intelligence, and it is designed to, again, to project those. It connects across multiple EDW universes, including the operating ledger, TEM, P-card, personnel payroll information, your grant inception to date, so we'll have your budget information in there, any encumbrance, so it connects all of these data sources using the grant code, so your 5-digit, your G4215 grant code. This report, and I'm just going to kind of go over it briefly because there are a lot of details inside of it, includes a few tabs, one of which is the first tab, which is a budget balance available, and it pulls data for every fiscal period over a fiscal year for your grant budget by period, your period starting balance, the non-personnel and personnel expenses in that period, the total, your encumbrance balance, your change in encumbrance, and your period ending balance. That pulls for each of those individual periods over a fiscal year, so that you can then look to see those changes and then be able to project out towards a grant end year. I work in the central business office for my college, and often I will get people who come to me and ask, what's my projected fund balance? And I haven't been working with their grant at all, not along the entire time. So this is a great report for me to use to be able to get any knowledge of the past history of that grant, and then be able to find an answer for them pretty quickly. One of the other important tabs in here is an expense summary by period, and this is inception to date. This tab gives a review of the expenses and encumbrances by fiscal period, allows a grant manager to easily see a summary of the grant, and is also really useful in projecting when you're trying to find average annual non-personnel expenses, your total expenses, or to review trends in those expenses by period. So if you can see that the month of January is a down month in your expenditures, you know that when you're annualizing that, you may want to look at a different figure to look at, because May is a huge month compared to January. Just helps you with any of that trend analysis. In addition to that, there is in this has both all personnel expenses and encumbrances. That's an easy way to help a grant manager or business manager to show what is already hit your ledger, what is still to come, and to show when encumbrances end in a balance, and then to be able to project beyond that point, so grant end date, or grant year end date, I should say. It also has a lot of helpful variables inside of the report that help to group data to more easily understand certain items. So one of them is, as we all know who work directly with it, your payroll accounting code that is the gross pay A and then D for the benefits. This actually groups that. So when a PI looks at that, they see fringe benefit or salary instead of accounting code A or D, so that it's easier to show them, to explain it. It has month connected to each fiscal period instead of showing a fiscal period. It's the one that I get all the time that I'm constantly trying to answer. So this is all located in there to help with projecting out balance as well. There are other fields and tabs in this that have TEM data, P-card information. We're looking to add in other fields that more experienced grant managers or business managers may want to add. So please send in your suggestions. Some of the additional items that we're looking to do include ICR distribution and ICR revenue or indirect cost charge for those who want to make sure they're reconciling where that ICR revenue distribution is being sent to. Leave balances for employees. There are a multitude of things that we can add to it. We just need those suggestions to come to us. So we're in final development of this and hopefully going to be adding it to our reporting subcommittee webpage. If you have suggestions, if you would like to help and pilot the report, please email us at reports@uic.edu. But yeah, if there are any questions, we can answer that. If not, I'll give it back to Gloria. Thank you.
Okay. Last but certainly not least, Scott Zalatoris is here to give us an update on policies that are in action in OBFS.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Scott Zalatoris. I'm with the Office of Business and Financial Services, and I'm pleased to close out the fiscal year AFO with exciting policy updates. So we'll get right into it. I'll run through a few recent updates to the manual, upcoming policy changes, let you know about 2 open comment periods that are planned for this summer, and then end with a few fiscal year-end reminders, questions that I get. You've just seen a couple hours of them, but I'll touch on a few that come to me directly and then leave any time for questions. Okay, as a reminder, I do maintain an updates page to the OBFS policy manual. Anytime a policy change is made, I reflect that change on the updates page, what it was, where it's located. You can get to it from the table of contents. The URL is provided here. So far in FY18, so I think this number's ticked up. I recorded 61 updates to the manual. I encourage you to sign up for the OBFS news service. It's the official way that we communicate. I'm trying to get into the DDDH more often, but if nothing else, the OBFS news service will record when we have a policy change, a major one, or an open comment period. And a final reminder, I say this every time, and I'm going to keep saying it, please download new forms every time you use them. Don't save them locally. We update our forms, and if you submit an old form, it will unfortunately delay your transaction. Okay, recent policy updates. This one is recent insofar as it's happened in the last few months, that it continuously impacts us. All moving expenses related to relocation payments, housing, different things like that, are considered taxable income to employees. This change was made at the end of 2017, the Tax Cuts and Job Act. So we had allowable payments and non-allowable payments. We still do. We're going to look at that. But it was based on the qualified, non-qualified expenditures from the IRS, and they're all taxable now. So if you make relocation payments, it is reported as taxable income to the employee, the future employee. You'll have to decide if you want to gross that up. Information is found in 18.5. We are going to be looking at all of our relocation payment policies. I'll get into that shortly, but a major overhaul is coming with that set of policies because of this huge change in the tax code. Okay, another recent update, this is in Section 8, the been expanded and non-cash reportable benefits. So this is the policy where if you're making a payment to an employee, to a non-employee, award payments, tangible gifts, things like that, this page had the tax and the reporting information. The change is payments and non-cash reportable benefits to non-University of Illinois employees. We've increased, this is a good thing, increased the reporting threshold to $200, increased from 100 to 200. That's the main point on this one. The title has changed slightly. Same URL, still in Section 8, just wanted to outline that. It says upcoming, but it's recent. It's the system-wide system and storeroom activities policy was published last Friday. Hopefully everybody got this OBFS news service announcement. This is a big policy. Please take the time to review it. It will impact your service activity rate calculations. Review it. If you have questions, the Office of Government Costing is the best resource. There's training available. There's a certification program. If you decide to contact me, I'm happy to help you. I'll forward it on to the Office of Government Costing, or I'll get you in contact with the right person. But please take some time to review this one. It's live now in Section 22. The communication, you can get to it either from the table of contents or from the news center, has a link to this and contact and additional resource information. Okay. Like I alluded to earlier, relocation payments. So we are going to start a review of all the existing policies, procedures, resources related to relocation. How we make reimbursement payments. Can we look at a different type of payment model? What's allowed, what's not allowed, dollar limits, thresholds, different reporting we do with HR, offer letters, all these different things are on the table. So that process is going to start in earnest this summer. I'm finalizing a proposal document for the, we'll call a menu of policy changes, but we're going to move into extensive stakeholder analysis. I'll be looking to conduct focus groups, coming back to this meeting, talking to any deans, directors, business managers. So there will be opportunity to provide feedback. It will ultimately have an open comment period. But if you're a department, if you're a unit that does a lot of relocations and you have an opinion about the policies or something you'd like to see new or changed, please feel free to contact me. I'm starting to compile a list of people that want to provide feedback. This will be a long one, but it's going to start this summer. So if you think you'd like to provide feedback about relocation, please contact me. Okay, planned open comment periods for this summer. A new policy, 9.3, it's a long one. Report activities from audits, reviews, consulting agreements, and attestation services provided by external parties. This is a new policy, but it's not a new process. So every year, the SAVP and accounting sent out an email saying if you have contracted with a third party to do it in consulting engagement or attestation services, you need to send the reports, the work product of that service, to the SAVP office, to accounting. We've been doing that for years. We're going to codify that. So this will go to an open comment period. You'll be able to see the official policy and procedure this summer, but it's something that we've been asking you to do for the last several years now. A new policy, 7.8, a supplier diversity policy, will also be coming to open comment period. We, through our various purchasing procurements, strategic procurement apparatuses, have supplier diversity built into our process already. What this is going to do is affirm that we're going to meet the Board of Trustees' commitment for diverse spend, show what is already in place, remind people of their obligations for small purchases, that you consider diverse vendors as part of your research when you're looking into vendors. So this won't necessarily impact what you're doing, but will remind you of existing obligations that you already go through. That will come out this summer as well, but it's another reminder that as a public institution, we have the commitment to have diverse spend when we're going out and making procurements. Okay. Like John, this is not all-encompassing. These are just a few fiscal year-end reminders I'm providing, questions I get. This is from Section 8, but it really works for any kind of accounting procurement you do. If you have an expenditure you incur in this year, It's got to be reported for this year. Think about P-card, think about T-card, those swipe dates, get those reported to this year. The fiscal year in sight that John has, the information in Section 8, good places if you have questions, the contacts for UAFI, the contacts for payables. Section 15 in travel, this one comes up. If your unit has long-term motor vehicle use, if you have a department car, if you're in facilities, athletics, every year you got to have a departmental driver approver form. The unit contact has to inspect the driver's license of the long-term driver and keep that file in your unit. That's a fiscal year requirement. One more fiscal year requirement, if you're a change fund custodian, you're required to complete the online change fund training every year. So, are there any questions I can answer, or anything I can elaborate on? Any clarifications, grievances? I will. Yeah. Yep. And I appreciate that. So for everybody in TV land, John was saying, reiterating the importance of using new forms every time, and a trick is to save a bookmark or a shortcut to the form web page itself to get the new form as opposed to downloading. I'll make just two things on this page. This phone number is still connected, but I have a new one that I'm going to be putting on going forward. It's on the website, and I'm going to be publishing it. It's 312-585-9049. 312-585-9049. I'm going to figure out how to get this to forward on, because if you call it now, you don't always get me. I move around a lot. The one I just gave you rings on my computer, so that's why it'll help you get me faster. And if you contact OBFS policies, if you don't get me within a day or two, please contact me again. I promise I'm not ignoring you. But if it slips through, I want to make sure I get your question answered. So phone number, email, if you feel like it's taken a day or two long, let me know again, but I will get to you. Okay, thank you.
So I'm trying to remember what we learned in speech class. Tell them what you're going to tell them, tell them what you told them. I think we got there at about fiscal year end this year. So I was thinking about how I was going to do my ending, and I was going to wish you all time to relax and re-energize over the summer, but keep a very mindful eye on fiscal year end as well. We're going to take a look at the format of these meetings over the summer, and I'll be reaching out to some of you. We combined the AFO BMGs this year, and I think that has had some success. I've had good comments about the broadcast of the meeting, and I think we certainly will keep that up. I'm wondering, do we want to segregate meetings by topic a little bit more? Send me ideas if you have them, so that we can think about how to make best use of your time. Thank you all so much for the work you do for the university. We do millions of transactions every year that allow the university to be successful, and I appreciate you. Have a great summer, and we'll see you in the fall.